Hello and welcome back to the Making the Radio Cut blog. I'm Michelle, and today we have part 2 of our interview with 93.3 WNCD, the Wolf Program Director, and also the Program Director of 95.9 KISS FM in Youngstown, Ohio, Matt Spatz. What was the biggest challenge after graduation?
Well, you know what? I'll be honest. There's luck that goes into it, but I honestly believe my favorite quote maybe of all time, Branch Rickey, Major League Baseball executive of the Dodgers way back in the day, his quote is, "Luck is the residue of design." And everybody needs a break. But basically, you got to put yourself in that position to be lucky. I started out screwing around with the college radio station. Before my freshman year was over, I changed majors because, again, since I was at a small school, I was actually an English major since I started at print journalism. I made that switch. I worked my way up the ranks, like I said, from just being on the air to be a music director to be a program director. I put in lots of time. I did tons of air shifts. I did specialty shows. I did the regular format. And I got a job working weekends at a commercial station in Columbus. I did that for about a year and a half. Then, of course, I did my internship at the same station that I already worked at. It was kind of backwards. I was already an employee. Then it was time for me to do an internship my senior year. So, I mean, that worked great. So I did all these things. I actually got hired for my first full-time job about 5 weeks before I graduated from. Applied for the job. I interviewed. I'm like, obviously, the only thing you got to do, I got 5 more weeks of school. They were willing to wait. I literally graduated from college on a Sunday. The very next day, Monday night at midnight, I started my first full-time job. And I know a lot of people aren't that lucky to step right into it, no matter what field you're in. Yes, that took a certain amount of luck that the job opened up at that time, and the person who was hiring happened to actually know the boss that I was working for, where I was the part-time jock. So he put in a great word. But if I wouldn't have done all that work leading up to it, that wouldn't have happened. So I got to be honest. I mean, the biggest challenge after college, I guess, it would have been finding an apartment to live on short notice. But fortunately, it was close to home, so I lived with my mom and dad for a little while until I found my own place. That was the biggest challenge.
That works. So what is the favorite part of your job today?
Favorite part of the job today, I think, is just that I love what I do. I mean, there's lots of little pieces. Sometimes things can be frustrating. I mean, I still enjoy being on the air. I still enjoy being involved with scheduling music and the new stuff, blending the format primarily that I do in rock, where we play some new stuff, bring the best of the new stuff in, but some of the all-time classics, and still going out and doing a good event where there's lots of people there. Maybe we're doing a big giveaway where you give away a car or something else, and seeing that person's face, just the smile, just ear to ear. Or I guess when somebody just calls out of the blue and says, "Hey, I love listening to you. You do a great job. We appreciate everything you do." There's just so many little things. And it always seems when you've had a day or a couple of days where you're just like, "Oh, why do I still come here and do this?" Something like that always seems to happen. And then you go, well, that's why. There's nothing else I could imagine myself doing.
How about the most challenging part of your job?
I think the most challenging is working with a lot of people. Staffs are a lot smaller than you used to. It was not uncommon to have 6, 7, 8 people on each radio station. So you could really delegate. You got to take on more responsibility now. But there's so many different personalities, and there's two sides of this business. Obviously, the performance side, people who are on air, people who do production, do the creative thing. And then there's the salespeople, which they don't care about that. All they want to do is make money and make this client happy, so they spend money. And you know what? It's not necessarily a bad thing, because that's what their job is. But finding that nice, happy medium between the two sides, like, okay, that's going to be really stupid if we do that on the air, and everybody's going to turn the radio off, so you're defeating the purpose. They're not going to get their message out, versus trying to make it fun, like, okay, I realize we got to satisfy this client, but there's got to be a better way that we can make it more fun and appropriate for the station. And not everybody always sees two sides to the story, and that's by far the most challenging. You've got so many different personalities. You got to bring it all together at the end of the day, because the person listening, anyone turning on the radio, they don't know about a sales department. They don't know about a promotion that was going to happen but never happened. The only thing they know is what comes through the speakers. We sometimes get hung up on everything that goes on behind the scenes that they never know about. They'll never know about. The only thing they hear is what comes through the speakers. So keeping everybody happy, and I don't think that's just probably in this career. I'm sure that's in any industry.
And since April, you've kind of had this CHR station thrown in your lap. Since most of your experience is in rock, what has that been like for you, and what are the major differences you notice between the two formats?
Well, obviously the first difference is that musically, and obviously not just the songs that are played, but the theory behind them. And at least I knew this, from having enough experience in radio, having enough friends, having people in multiple formats. Top 40 is obviously all about new music. You play it a lot, and it burns out a lot quicker. And some of those songs, you know full well, okay, this is going to be really big for a few months, but then you're never going to hear it again. Whereas in rock, it's really, you're much more selective, and every time you put a new song on, there's that hope that, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're still going to be listening to that song because people are going to be loving that song. And, it's just two totally different, rock is male-driven, CHR is more female-driven, and, it's a new animal, but it's something that obviously I am enjoying. I think it does nothing but help me broaden my horizons. But on the other hand, I don't think I've stepped in and said, this is what we're going to do because I said so. I think a lot of people might be just saying, would just step in and say, we're going to do it my way, even if they don't have experience. I've relied on, the people here, other friends who are in the format. I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to just kind of listen to something and see how it goes. I don't believe in knee-jerk reactions. And I knew just coming in on April 28th, I couldn't just change everything like that. Things will work itself out in time. There will be things that, maybe we should do this a little bit differently, or, that really works well. I'm not going to touch that. So, it's just the next step, I think, in my career. I think it was inevitable at some point if I was going to continue to be employed, which thankfully I am. That at some point I was going to have another responsibility, and I think that this is a good place for it to be.
And this is a scary question, especially for someone like me who's still yet to break into a full-time gig, but where do you see the industry 5 years from now?
Well, honestly, I think it's going to get better, and I don't want to say, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I don't want to put a timetable on it, but I think what we're finding, and I don't mean this to be bashing of Clear Channel or CBS or Cox Radio or Citadel or any of the big ones, but a lot of these companies they just got so big with the deregulation of the mid-90s. People just went out, bought, because at the time they thought, oh, this is great. The more you can own, the better. And I think we're seeing bigger isn't necessarily better. And a lot of these companies that have loans coming because now they're having trouble paying for these stations they purchased, at some point they're going to start selling these radio stations again to smaller companies. And I think that's nothing but good because you'll have these smaller companies with local owners more likely, maybe bigger staffs. They're going to care more about that individual station rather than just their overall bottom line. And I think that is where the industry is going to go. Yeah, it's a rocky road, but again, the whole country right now with the economy, so many of these industries, it's a pretty rocky road in a lot of places. So sometimes I think we get hung up on, oh, this is radio. Well, open your eyes, look at the big picture. A lot of people are going through this right now. People in all of these other careers who are getting let go. They're getting downsized, getting laid off, or having to take pay cuts. It's going on everywhere. I do think that radio, the only way that it's going to survive, which it will, it always has. I mean, when cable TV first came out, oh, that's it, death of network TV, ABC, NBC, CBS, they will not exist anymore. Well, yeah, that's not the case. Obviously, they still do. This is the same thing. Satellite radio and all of these other things, iPods, whatever, radio's still going to be here. We need to continue to adapt, to make to deliver expectation, realize why people are using us, how they're using us, and deliver what they're expecting from us. That will happen, and we will continue to see more jobs in the future as these radio stations get spun off.
Okay, after that question, these are the fun bonus questions.
Okay, all right.
If you had to be stuck on a desert island with one music artist for an entire year, who would you want it to be?
Well, it would be AC/DC. And when you first started asking that question, I thought, oh my God, where am I going with this? But, I just, to me, that's always going to be my favorite. I think they're going to be the greatest, and they always will. I mean, to be as successful as they were, and then to have their lead singer drink himself to death, and then find a new lead singer 6 months later, and to become every bit, if not more popular than they were. It's just an amazing thing, and they're just, the definition of rock and roll. I mean, it's just chill. Don't take things so seriously. Just kick back. Everything will be all good.
Fill in the blank. I can't make it through the day without...
Oh, boy. Can't make it through the day without... seeing my children. And it does get difficult in this business with some of the events, long hours, weird hours, but at the end of the day, I know I just talked about how important radio is. I can't imagine anything else, but until one has kids, you don't really know. But I mean, they're what it's all about, without a doubt.
And my last question is, do you have any advice for college kids trying to get into radio?
I would say, you got to work your tail off. I started as a part-timer making minimum wage and doing, when I was in college, again, because we didn't have all these automated systems, we actually played CDs and somebody was there in the chair 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I did the middle of the night, Friday night into Saturday morning and Saturday night into Sunday morning. And I know there were people at college like, you're giving up your Friday and your Saturday night? I was like, well, this is what I want to do for a living. And you gotta, anything that's asked of you, you do it because it will pay off. Because it's not all bad with fewer jobs. What it has done, it's weeded out people. I don't want to say who aren't as good, and that's not necessarily, but people who don't work. There's that saying about the cream rising to the top. That is the thing. People who are employed in this business today are all pretty good. That's just the reality of it, because you got to wear more hats, you got to do more things, and the only way to start that is to do anything and everything you can. I know it sounds cliche, but really. And again, I think that probably applies to any field that you're in. You just, absolutely, I'll do that. I'll do whatever it takes, because people do notice. It's no surprise, when if an employer has to choose between person A or person B, it's going to come down to person, with the good attitude, the person with the better work ethic, who's still going to have a job. It's just that simple.